Hello, friends. Hello, friends. How are you all doing tonight, family? I'm excited that you are here. Welcome back to Leadership Impact Night. I'm Pastor Benjamin Wilson. I don't know what you have experienced over the course of this day, but I believe tonight is going to be amazing. This session isn't about hype. It's not about performance. It's about realignment. Or for some of you watching, it's about alignment. You see, some of us have been pushing so hard to lead well on the outside that we've started to neglect what's happening on the inside of us. Tonight's session is entitled Built Inside Out, and we're going to look at the power of internal alignment. So let's lock in all the way, because the truth is this: you can look the part, speak the part, and even be applauded for the part. But if your internal world is out of order, everything you build will eventually collapse under the weight of what you never dealt with. Friends, I want that to sink in. I want to ask you a question. Have you ever looked in the mirror and felt like something just didn't line up? Not your hair. I don't have to worry too much about that. For me, it's my beard. Not what you're wearing. But it's something deeper. You're achieving, but you're not fulfilled. You're applauded, but you're still wrestling in the dark. You're doing everything right, but something still feels a bit off. That's not weakness. That's not failure. That is a signal. It's a signal that it's time for alignment, or again, for some realignment. I want to take a moment right now just to kind of speak to the fact that I'll be saying alignment a lot. For some people, it's realignment. I don't want to keep saying that back and forth, alignment or realignment. So whatever applies to you, I just want you to know, when you hear me say alignment or realignment, apply it to where you are. Okay? So let's jump into this. Your gifts might take you places, but only alignment will keep you in that place. Have you ever seen a house that looked flawless on the outside? Fresh paint, sharp landscape, beautiful curb appeal. I'm looking for a house like that, only to find out that later the foundation was cracked. I don't want that house. That's how a lot of leaders are. Polished on the surface, charismatic, strategic, gifted, but underneath there's pressure that they haven't processed. There's trauma they never talked about. There's identity that they never owned. And here's the truth: it's only a matter of time before what's underneath begins to show up in what you're building. You can't fake strength forever. You can't outperform being misaligned. The cracks don't come from the weight of what's on you, they come from the misalignment that is within you. And what happens is we don't collapse because we're weak. And friends, we collapse because we've ignored the warning signs. That's the very reason why I don't want to get too heavy. That's why this session tonight matters, because you were never designed to live fractured. You were called to live not just whole, but to live inside out. And here's what makes this even more real: some of the most painful collapses don't happen because a storm came. They happen because we never stopped to strengthen the structure. It's not always the pressure from the outside. It's the alignment on the inside that breaks us down slowly. But we're going to tackle that tonight. Alignment isn't just about avoiding collapse. Alignment is about leading and living from a place of wholeness. Friends, if we're going to lead with consistency, if we're going to build with integrity, if we are going to last beyond the applause and impact for generations to come, there's something we have to do. We've got to go deeper. So tonight, we're going to break this thing down into what I like to call, and what we're going to call for this moment, the 3 layers of internal alignment. 3 core areas every leader must absolutely confront, cultivate, and commit to if you want to live and lead from the inside out. I want to start with the first layer. It'll pop up on the screen. You can take notes as well. Alignment with identity. This is where everything begins, because it doesn't happen, or it doesn't matter if you are living or leading in a place where you are doing everything right and you don't know who you are. Simply put, if you don't know who you are, at your core, you'll lead from confusion, comparison, and compensation. You cannot build anything lasting when your sense of self is unstable. Psalm 139 says, I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. I know many of you have heard that before. It's awesome scripture, common scripture. I want us to sit with that for just a moment. Because before you were called to lead, preach, build, create, coach, manage, parent, or whatever it is that you've been called to do or that you're doing, you were formed. I want you to let that settle. Before anything, you were formed. God knew you before anyone labeled you. And here's the truth that every leader, every person needs to face. If the enemy can distort your identity, he can detour your destiny. He doesn't have to do much more than that. The enemy doesn't need to destroy your calling. He just needs you to doubt who you are. If he can get you to doubt who you are, if he can't take away your gift, he'll twist your view of yourself until you misuse it. If he can't stop you from leading, he'll convince you that you're a fraud. If he can't block your purpose, he'll just simply make you question your value. If he can't hit you one way, he'll come at you another. Why? Because when you forget who you are, you settle for roles you were never meant to carry and chase things that were never even assigned to you. You're performed for approval. You'll lead to prove instead of leading to serve. You'll shrink in the moments you were built to rise in. And here is the hardest part. You'll still be applauded. You'll still be applauded, but you will be misaligned. Affirmation from people does not heal distorted identity. Imagine walking into those carnivals, those fun houses. I've done it before. You step in front of that mirror that warps everything. In reality, you know you are 6 foot tall, balanced, strong, solid. But in this mirror, your reflection is stretched, shrunken, bent all out of proportion. You laugh because you know it's not who you really are. That's not you. But what if that was the only mirror you ever had access to? What if every time you looked at yourself, that's what you saw? Friends, eventually you start to believe the distorted image. You dress for it, you think for it, you lead from it, not realizing that everything you built was based on a lie you accepted as the truth. That's what the enemy does. He warps the mirror constantly. He uses trauma, he uses culture, he uses comparison, he even uses religion to distort the reflection. When you don't know your true identity, the enemy doesn't even have to attack you. He doesn't have to attack your calling because you will sabotage yourself trying to be someone who you were never created to be. That's why alignment with identity is not optional. It is essential. It's not just about feeling good about yourself. It's about leading from truth, living from sonship, walking in kingdom confidence. Because when you lead from identity, you stop reacting and you start responding. Not to opinions, but you start responding to assignment. I want to make this plain for you. You were not called to be a version of someone else's success. You were not created to copy their cadence or mimic their mantle. You were fearfully and wonderfully made from the beginning of time, from the beginning of creation, with precision, purpose, and created for impact. So stop measuring your worth by metrics you were never called to master. Identity is your anchor. And when you're anchored in identity, 1, you stop chasing applause. 2, you stop folding under pressure. And 3, you stop comparing yourself to anyone. You stand, you speak, you lead. You do this all with character, confidence, and consistency. But alignment with identity is just the beginning. Because once you know who you are, there's another question. And that question is, are you living like it when no one's watching? You all know where I'm headed. The first layer of internal alignment is alignment with identity. The second is alignment with integrity. Because how you live, it has to match with who you claim to be. This is where a lot of leaders rise and fall, because it's one thing to know who you are. It's another thing to live like it when nobody sees you, when nobody has the spotlight on you. Proverbs 4:23 tells us, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Notice, it doesn't say guard your title, guard your image. It does not say guard your reputation. It says guard your heart. Check this out, y'all. This only hit me as I was preparing for tonight's session, and it's been blowing my mind since. It says, guard your heart. Check this out. The heart is the hidden place. The place nobody claps for. The place no algorithm sees, but the place where everything flows from. That's the part we don't post about. The part we think that we've buried well. The part that we protect, because if anyone really saw this, they might question you. They might walk away from you. They might even disqualify you. But I want to tell you something. God does his best work in the hidden places. The womb is a hidden place. The root system of a tree is hidden. Jesus himself grew in wisdom and in stature for 30 years in Nazareth before one miracle, before one crowd, before one sermon. All of that hidden, not forgotten, but being formed. The heart is where motives are shaped, where wounds either fester or heal, and where intentions are born. That's why Proverbs says, guard your heart, not guard your talent, not your resume, not your following. I'm sorry, not your following. Because you can, the truth of the matter is you can lead thousands of people and still be rotting on the inside if you ignore the hidden place. The hidden place is where resentment either grows or resentment is confronted. Pride either rises or it's surrendered. Vision is either polluted or it gets clear. And here's what we often miss. The most dangerous thing isn't what's happening around you. It's what's happening in you that you never bring into light. The longer we leave the heart unaddressed, the more our gift becomes a mask instead of a ministry. So I want to ask you this straight out. I want you to ask yourself this question. What's happening in your hidden place right now? Because what you won't heal in private will start bleeding in public. So if the heart is the hidden place, then integrity is what determines whether that hidden place is healthy or hazardous. Friends, it's not enough just to guard what's visible. You've got to steward what's on the inside of you. You've got to steward the internal. Because if your heart is where everything flows from, then it's like integrity is the filter. And check this out. If the filter is contaminated, then so is the flow. Integrity isn't just about morality, it's about wholeness. The word integrity comes from a word, and forgive me, I can't remember what the Latin word is, but I know that it means entire, whole, or undivided. So if you're compartmentalized, if you're polished in public but poisoned in private, if you say the right things but live something else completely different behind the scenes, if you're not walking in integrity, you're walking in fragments. And fragmented leadership always leads to frustration for you and those following you. You can't lead with clarity if you're living with contradiction. Let me tell you about one of my favorite mugs. It was a birthday gift. A Batman mug. I started to bring it out, but I was like, I don't know if I want to do that because I don't want to get in trouble for streaming and having something that they might think is a kind of promo or using someone else's logo. I don't have all the copyright stuff, so I'm not doing that. But it was a Batman mug. Y'all, this thing was black. It was cold. It was designed the way that I love it. It felt heavy in the hand. And man, I loved it. It had like a comic strip around it with the Batman logo right there. It was amazing. I used it all the time, every morning, middle of the day, late at night. Anytime I needed something to drink, hot or cold, I was using it. It wasn't just a cup to me. It was family. It became a routine. A part of the routine. It felt solid. It was wonderful. I had no issue with it. But then something changed. One day after pouring a cup of coffee, I noticed a small trail of liquid underneath the cup. It wasn't anything major, just a few drops, and I was like, oh man, I got the napkin, wiped it. I was like, I need to be more careful when I'm pouring into this thing. Maybe I tilted things too far. I wiped it up. I moved on and enjoyed my coffee. But then it happened again and again and again. But I didn't want to believe the truth. I loved that mug too much. So I kept using. I kept telling myself it's fine. But deep down, I knew something else was going on. It wasn't a spill. It wasn't me. It was the mug. There was a crack. It wasn't visible from the outside. It still looked perfect sitting on the counter. It still looks great. Right now it's sitting inside of the china cabinet. I'm not throwing away though because it has a crack. That's still my mug. It looked good sitting on the counter, but on the inside, the part that was meant to hold what was poured into it, that part had been compromised. And no matter how much I loved it, no matter how much I tried to ignore it, the crack meant it couldn't carry what it could. That's how a lot of leaders live. On display, admired, gifted, used consistently, but somewhere along the journey, life hits hard. A subtle fracture forms, a compromise, a secret wound, an unchecked habit. And instead of dealing with it, we rationalize. We say I'm not to, or we say something to the effect of I'm tired, or it's not that bad, or it's okay. I've got this under control. But the truth is, the crack is leaking, and if you don't let God kill it, it doesn't matter how much He pours into it; it is going to seep out. Not because you aren't gifted, not because you aren't valuable, but because what's been fractured on the inside, friends, it can't hold what's been entrusted to you on the outside. The dangerous thing about integrity issues is that they usually don't announce themselves loudly. It's not one big collapse, it's a slow erosion. It's cutting corners because no one will notice. It's preaching peace while living in chaos. It's leading others while never letting anyone lead you. Saying you're fine while privately you are falling apart. But here's what makes integrity so powerful. When it's in place, it becomes an invisible force that makes your leadership stable. When it's missing, everything becomes unstable, even if it looks successful. Think of it as think of your calling or your leadership as oil, and your character is your container. No matter how anointed or skilled you are, if your container is cracked, you will leak. You'll leak bitterness, you'll leak insecurity, you'll leak control, you'll leak pride, you will leak performance. That's why we don't just need polished leaders, we need pure ones. Not perfect, but honest, consistent, and aligned leaders. If your private life contradicts your public message, your impact won't last. If your team sees two different versions of you, they'll follow out of fear, not trust. If your life has been hidden for your influence to remain, your influence is already compromised. The same charisma that gets you into rooms, friends, it won't keep you if there's a crack in your character and you are not aligned. So I want you to take a moment to reflect. Where is your backstage life not matching your front stage platform? Where are you tolerating a small crack, thinking it won't matter, but deep down you know it's slowly leaking the very thing God entrusted you with? Now, after you have reflected, I want you to declare this with me, okay? I want you to speak this out loud. I will not sacrifice my soul for visibility. I will not pretend for applause. I will not lead with charisma and neglect my character. I will live with integrity. I will lead from wholeness. I will align what I believe with how I behave. When you're rooted in identity and aligned in integrity, your leadership becomes a force of truth. But there's still one more layer we've got to check. Because even if you know who you are and live how you should, you still have to ask, where are you leading in the first place? So we've covered identity, who you are. We've gotten a bit into integrity, how you live. But there's one more layer that determines the weight and witness of your leadership. Now, I don't want y'all to miss this. You ready? Intention. The reason why you lead. Because even if, excuse me, my phone going off. Even if you know that you're living the right way and following your values, if your motives are off, if your why is rooted in ego, applause, control, or broken validation, you will lead with passion but produce confusion. You'll hustle hard but end up empty. Colossians 3 says, whatever you do, work at it with all your heart as working unto the Lord and not as unto man. Friends, that's intention. It's the motive beneath the motion. It's the why behind every what. Let's be honest. It's easier to start with pure motives and drift over time. You started to serve, but now you strive to be seen. You started to make impact, and now you chase influence. You started because God called you. Now you continue because you're afraid to stop. And here's the danger. People can't always see your why, but your fruit will always reveal it. You can produce with the wrong motives. You can build with impure intention, but eventually, what you are building will start revealing what it is that is inside of you. That's why alignment with intention is essential. It anchors you when everything else starts shaking. Think of a leader who, as someone who holding a clock in one hand and a compass in the other. The clock represents pace. The compass represents purpose. A lot of leaders, they manage time really well. They're efficient. They're fast. They check all of the boxes. They crush all the deadlines. They hit all the benchmarks. But what good is moving fast if you're headed in the wrong direction? You can run hard, work late, post daily, speak often, but if your compass is off, you will only get to the wrong destination faster. That's what happens when intention is misaligned. You lead with urgency, but not with accuracy. You make noise, but you don't leave a mark. You succeed on paper, but starve in your soul. But when your pace is aligned with purpose, when your compass is right, you just don't do more. You do what matters most. So let me ask you, are you leading to be noticed or to make a difference? Are you building for legacy or applause? Are you serving because it's your assignment or because it's your addiction? The kingdom doesn't need more successful leaders. It needs more surrendered leaders. Leaders who can say, I don't just want to build something big. Leaders who say, I want to build something right. Now, I want you to take a moment to repeat these statements. If you have to, pause the video on the replay if you can, or pause it even now and then just pick up as the live is going. Do whatever you have to. I want you to say, I will not lead from ego. I will not be driven by fear, control, or applause. I will lead. I will make sure that I lead by vision. I will lead from purpose, not pressure. My why will honor God, serve people, and build something that lasts. Friends, when you lead from identity, you lead with confidence. When you walk in integrity, you lead with consistency. When you operate from intention, you lead with clarity and conviction. This is what it means to be built inside out. Because external success without internal alignment, friends, is a facade. But when your inner world is whole, your outer world becomes a vessel for something more eternal. Here's the hard truth. Misalignment doesn't always show up as chaos. Sometimes it shows up as compromise, slow compromise, as bitterness that you can't shake, as a quiet drift away from peace, as success that doesn't satisfy. Like a car out of alignment, it starts with a subtle pull. You don't even notice it at first, but if you keep ignoring it, you'll end up in a ditch that you never saw coming. James 1:8 says that a double-minded man is unstable in all of his ways, all of his ways. Friends, stability starts with alignment. You don't need to do more, you need to realign. This isn't just a moment, friends, it's a mindset. Alignment is a spiritual discipline. Every day, here's what you need to do. You need to reflect, you need to pray, you need to heal, you need to rest, you need to submit, you need to guard your heart, and you need to invite God in. Alignment is not automatic. You don't drift into it, friends. You have to decide into it. You don't stumble into it. You discipline into it. And guess what? God loves and cares about you so much that he will correct your compass. That tension that you've been feeling, that's not punishment, y'all. That's realignment. You weren't just built to inspire. You weren't just built to impress. You weren't even just built to lead. You were built to live aligned. Because what's in you aligns with what God put on you. Everything changes the moment they line up. Here's the challenge I want to give to you tonight. Don't just take notes. I want you to take action, because internal alignment isn't just a one-time decision. It's a daily commitment. We've already run through those things that have to be done. It means getting honest about where you've been leaking. It means owning where you've been out of rhythm and inviting God to realign what's been misaligned. Friends, maybe for you is going back to your identity and silencing every label that doesn't line up with who God says you are. Maybe it's integrity, bringing the hidden places back into the light before they bleed into everything that you've built. Maybe it's your intention, getting honest about what's really been driving you and asking God to purify your why. Whatever layer needs attention, this is the moment to align. Not next week, not when the pressure dies down, but right now. Because the most dangerous thing you can do, especially now, the most dangerous thing you can do as a leader is become so good at looking the part that you forget to live from a place of wholeness. You were not built to perform. You were built with purpose. You were not designed to leak. You were designed to carry. You are called to lead from a place of identity. You were called to live inside out. This isn't just a moment. A moment is a movement. And movements are built by leaders who are willing to do the internal work that the spotlight never ever sees. Friends, next week we shift the lens. We're going from leaders being built from the inside out to the type of leadership that flips leadership upside down. I'm ready for next week already. The session is going to be the servant leader paradox. Why power is serving? Because real power doesn't climb ladders. Real power carries towels. And some of the strongest leaders in history were the ones who knelt first. Don't miss next week. We're just getting started. This is going to be good. Friends, that's it for tonight's Leadership Impact Night. I pray that this session has stirred something deep within you. And even more than that, I pray that it sparked a decision. A decision to live, lead, and build from the inside out. If this session spoke to you, if it blessed you, if it challenged you, I want you to do two things before we close out tonight. The first is this. I want you to share this video. Send it to a leader who needs it. Post it to your story. Do something with it. Tag someone who's been pouring out but may need to be realigned. Or someone you got put on your heart to say, share this. Let's flood the timeline with this truth and transformation. Second, make sure you're locked in for next week. Same time, 7:30, same fire. We're diving into the servant leader paradox. Why power is serving. And trust me, you're going to love this. Until next week, I want you to stay aligned, stay grounded, and keep leading from the inside out. Friends, good night.